5:30. I think everyone is here that's going to be here, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Cassie, if you will do roll call for us.
William Beck. Maddie Knudsen.
Here.
Colleen Lautenbach.
Here.
Allison Finn. Here. Shelby Poole.
Here.
Ashley Stassic.
Here.
Carla Sherrill.
Here.
Joe Valentine.
Here.
So welcome, Maddie. It's nice to meet you. Sorry I missed your first meeting last month, but we do have you down to read our mission and vision, please.
Sounds good. The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis of a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on the academic and leadership challenges they will face in high school and beyond.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda. We need to add 2 additional parts. It'll be under 9.4 and 9.5. 9.4 is adding to approve that Jonas and I are able to engage in credit transactions, open accounts, endorse checks and orders for the payment of money or otherwise withdraw or transfer funds on deposit with Old National Bank on behalf of the Woodbury Leadership Academy, and to sign all documents for any such transactions on behalf of the Woodbury Leadership Academy. And then 9.5 is the Board of Directors of Woodbury Leadership Academy has approved and authorized Jonas and Nicole Link to be the on-point administrators for Woodbury Leadership Academy as it relates to their treasury management platform with Old National Bank. Essentially, the people that were authorized as signers on our accounts are no longer here, and so we just need to update them to be the current people in those positions. So I would make a motion to add 9.4 and 9.5.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I assume there'll be discussion when because we have to approve it once we get there.
Yes, this is just to add it to the agenda. Yep. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then I will make approval of the September board meeting agenda as amended. There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Does anyone have conflict of interest to declare this evening? Guessing there's no public comment since we don't have any parents here. All right, board report. I've been out for a couple of months, so I apologize. Busy time for me as well with back to school. We had our open house. So I'm just excited to be back. I'm excited to go see the new building tonight. Excited to hear about all the good things that are happening at the start of the year. So, we do still need a parent on the board, so if any of you know of any parents that would make great candidates, please ask them to email Jonas and I, and we'll move forward with next steps if we get any interest. So, turn it over to Jonas.
Yeah. Are you able to pull up the superintendent report? Yeah, so our finance governance committee's back as normal. I just kind of put launch the school year and some bullet points, just kind of talk about how things are going. Busing seems to be hugely improved. First week, you had all the usual first week's pieces, but you know, I think this week, every day, 14 of the 18 buses have been out by 4:05, and the last ones have been 5 to 10 minutes late, not an hour late like the first week. And so, yeah, we have the office staffed every afternoon from 4:30 to 5:30. We rotate nights. I have one night after Ben, Nicole, Seidler, and Colin, and this week we've got no calls. You know, we're ringing off the hook the first couple, first week especially. So feeling good about that. The drive line has been good. so far. I'll just read a part of an email I got from a parent yesterday. Thank you again. I meant to mention the other day that of all the years we've been at WLA, the way you guys have handled the parking afternoon pickup has easily been the best we've ever seen, and this is our 5th year at WLA. Thank your team for the efforts on that, and it's directly felt by me as a parent picking up every day. So from a parent standpoint, it's going very, very well. That's the good news. The bad news right now is that it's going really, really well kind of on the backs of our teachers. Our teachers are having to be out there till 4:15, 4:20, where in the past it was kind of sending your kids out at 3:50 and your kids in your room and you're kind of getting prepared for the next day. And as it is, it's not sustainable. So we are going to continue to have to work on how we're going to adjust that. And I had people with me today looking at some options, particularly in light of construction, which will start in November, which will knock out about 50 of our parking spots.
And snow will knock out some spots
And
as well.
snow will knock out some spots as well. And so we've been closely analyzing and trying to figure out how to solve multiple problems, including parking, and getting it so that it's running as smooth as it is now without it requiring the unreasonable amount of extra labor from our teachers. And so we're working on it. We have some good ideas, but we need to flesh them out before I'm ready to share.
Are you free to answer a question about the parking spots?
Yes.
Okay, how, are all, when parent pickup is happening, are all of the parent slots that are reserved filled at a certain time? Or are there several that are like, because they're, I assume they're rotated through?
So for each window, we have 55 cars that have.
But they're
Okay.
not all coming at the same time,
Well,
correct?
For each window, so during that blue window,
Yeah.
there's 55. Then there's another 55 during the orange window. But to your point, today when I analyzed it, the cars that were there, there was some cushion, right? Not cushion to deal with the 50 spaces we're losing during construction, but that one of the pieces that we're looking at, we need more than one day of data there.
Right.
To figure out, how
Right.
much, but that's one that can help a little bit. But separate from that space, most of the day, there's about 10 to 12 unfilled spots in the parking lot right now. And so you take 50 spots out and you only have 10 to 12 unfilled right now, then you might lose more spots from the snow. It doesn't fit. And so we're working on some solutions. We had a plan that was less than ideal. We think we may have come up with a better one today, but we need to flesh it out more before. And of course, like anything else, would have advantages and disadvantages. So we're working on that from a variety of places. And, but it's going, I think right now, really well from the amount of time it's taking parents to get through with the pickup is greatly reduced, even though we have 27% more students. From that standpoint, it's working really well. It's just putting a lot of strain on really our teachers more than anything right now. So we gotta figure out how to reduce that. Other pieces, breakfast and lunches, we have kind of some of the same concerns that have been there for 3 years that are, not to minimize them, but there are a lot of the same concerns you've probably heard throughout my 30-some years in education. Every place I've been about school lunches and breakfast, but we're going to continue to work and figure out what we can do and what our options are there. Staffing, we're basically fully staffed, and the work we really did starting really early in working hard in February, starting in February really paid off where, we added, as of right now, about 200 and close to 250 more students than last year, and we've been fully staffed, and so that was my big concern with having so much growth in 1 year is can we get the right people, and we really feel good about how that's played out. Our enrollment you know, as of right now, is actually 1,124. It is still our hope that we are able to essentially be full with waiting lists at every grade by the end of the month, and that we will, you know, then be able to really have stability in a way that we've never had in that sense before. And so that will be positive. And so we'll see. As I mentioned here, we did have a mailing that went out yesterday that's targeted for specifically at children that ages of the grades we still have a few openings. With the idea, let's try and get the positions filled in September, where you're not adding kids in October, November, and December, and January. And so we're optimistic we'll be able to do that. We'll talk about the report card data when we get to presentations, and kind of talked in previous months about some of the academic programs we're adding, that we've added and are adding, and that's in process. Everything's rock solid financially right now, as far as this year goes, and you know, we just gotta develop a plan for the future here to have things fleshed out. And since we met last, the 8147 building, the part that we've occupied, has been basically finished. We were occupied on time to start the school year. Few little items left as we're still waiting on lockers to be delivered, so we've been going without lockers, which has been going surprisingly well. Almost to the point where you're like, we really need lockers? Like, you know, the upper grades, I was telling my friend who's a principal at a high school, and she was like, we're getting rid of all our lockers, we just never use them. But you start getting winter jackets and winter things, and it does kind of...
They don't wear them.
Yeah. Fair.
Or even bring them.
They don't.
Yeah. So, and then the only other thing was the garage door that will make our cafeteria and art room. It's a multi-purpose space. But right now, because the garage door delivery is delayed, like when our class is going on, there's no door. You know, it's a big open space. That's less than ideal. That was delivered today, and they'll start installation at 6 a.m. tomorrow, hoping to have it installed before the first art class tomorrow at 10 a.m. So that will be, we're excited about that. Under communications management, I just shared some of the communications I sent to staff, community, just from an update standpoint, just a way to let you kind of see some of the communications that are going out in your supervisory role there. And that is my update for now.
Mm-hmm.
What questions or comments do we have on superintendent update?
I have a question or comment about breakfast or lunches, but
Mhm.
maybe that can be something that I address to Ben, and it would be more of a school logistic rather than a school board logistic. Is that who I would contact?
I think that would start there, yeah.
Okay.
If it's not gonna require us to change policy,
Correct.
then I would start there.
It would just be ordering pieces, so, but that would not be a school board issue.
Not necessarily, but most likely not, although, depends. Yeah, but I would say start with that.
Yep.
That's my report.
Oh, I did have a question about ADM. Maybe
Yeah.
that's more of a finance, and
No.
I'll figure that
No,
out in a
no,
second.
I'm happy to answer that.
What is the ADM? Like, I know that we're trying to get a target of 100, or 1,132.
ADM stands for average.
Oh, I'm sorry, I know what it is, but
Oh.
what is our current ADM for what we're trying to, like, what's our target for our budget?
Oh.
Is it 1,132? Is that what we're trying?
Our current budget is based on 1,110.
Okay, so we're okay when it comes to ADM, like we're
Yeah,
making our budget with the
Yes.
currents? Okay.
So, but for example, last year, when we continued to enroll students when there's openings throughout the year, we still dropped by about 16, from what our enrollment was right now, our final average daily membership was 16 less than our enrollment at this point this year.
Sure, because students move or whatever, so our enrollment drops.
And we also have a number of families that go to overseas
Holiday.
trips that we have to unenroll during the time that
Yep.
they do. And that, because we have so many families that have roots in other parts of the world.
Right.
We probably have that disproportionately. So we lose more ADMs just from those as well, then we have to unenroll the time period they're on these long vacations. And so, yeah, so we really want to be at 11:30-ish right now to feel comfortable that we'll end the year where we're budgeted at 11:10. Does that make sense? Without having to feel like we have to be, feel like we can close enrollment and say our school is really full based on transportation, based on space, based on which it legitimately is. And so it's kind of getting that balance, and the feeling was we want to really try and get it up a little bit now so we can say, okay, we've hit our maximum, we're going to just ask the board to close enrollment, and feel like as we lose students, we don't have to replace them because we've built in a little cushion.
And we've probably never closed enrollment other than at May. Is that?
We didn't last year. It sounds like
We had before,
Well, we had
yeah,
pre-
like January, February,
Okay.
Kathy used to close it. Especially for like middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, just some grade levels, or I think it was depending on grade levels, like middle
Yeah.
school is for sure one.
Yeah.
the more we can get forward, there's not very many spots to fill, even if we don't close it. It's just more, we have adding the classes later in the year, the more disruptive it is to cultures that teachers have worked so hard to build.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right, so we'll turn it over to Colleen for our financials.
Wonderful. We met last week, and what was special about this meeting is that we went over all the information that we wanted to share, but then Jonas kind of opened it up to a question and answer session for newbies like me who are learning as we go, and I thought I'd share a little bit of what I learned, and maybe you know this stuff, but I guess it's good to share. We talked about how there was some changes in some special ed funding that would reduce the reimbursement of transportation from 100% to 95%. And whenever there's a reduction in anything that's important for kids, I'm like, what is that about? So we were looking at some of the, where we get the money from, where we get federal money from, and that is for special ed funding. And students who have free and reduced lunches, and we have about 20% of students that receive it at our school. So, you shared that this is important. This is how we get our money from the federal government, which I was kind of surprised. I didn't know that. Okay. We talked about cash reserves and how we are at 60 days and why that's important. Maintaining these cash reserves are essential for meeting covenants that we have. And we just want to, as our budget grows, we want to make sure that that cash is always available for us. So our goal is at 90 days. We talked about lease aid and how that's impacting the current year's estimated receivables. We're supposed to get $1.4 million in lease aid. And that's broken into 2 payments per month. And we talked about how that breaks down. One question I had is, when I speak to a lot of people in the community, they're so surprised that WLA is so successful financially. We hear about other charter schools really struggling, and so that was something that I really wanted to learn more about. And Jonas answered that it was managed really conservatively before he arrived. And just with the continuous growth that has happened over the last 2 years, by maximizing enrollment and opening our doors to more students, we're able to grow those revenue within the really big goal that we have of keeping the class sizes at a really noticeable and impressive number. So those were just some of the things we talked about. Anybody have any questions?
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the August financials and September committee minutes.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And I'll turn it over to Joe.
Yeah, so governance committee met on August 11th. September 11th, you're right, yeah. It's off on there. That's probably my bad. So we finished up with further review in the 500 series, 505, 506, 510. 505, we just made a minor edit, staying consistent with changing the executive director to school leader. 506 was sent with the board packet because we did make some deletions on that, page 17, and then there was a grid on there that felt more operational. Policy 510, we also made some changes per Jonas's recommendation with some K through 12 and some language in some of the guidelines, which was also sent as part of the first reading. Also, we had it on the agenda, but we ended up tabling, and I think it's kind of part of the discussion tonight. Further on is the bylaws, so we tabled it in our meeting, and obviously there'll be more with that tonight. And then we also tabled the procurement policy. We're looking at an example versus our old one at 701, and Jonas had some recommendations with that we're going to relook at and discuss in our next meeting. So then we also wanted to add, to try to discuss in the October meeting, because we've kind of added in the future discussions for a really long time, the student journalism policy and the library material policy. So we're trying to kind of inch that back into the forefront and make sure we try to talk about that in the next meeting. And our next one's scheduled for October 9th. Anybody have any questions or comments, especially with any of the first reading ones submitted, policies, 506, 510?
And the second reading ones, my brain is, the second reading ones were essentially voting to adopt the changes tonight in the second reading, right?
Yeah, it'd be like the final, because it sounds like there wasn't any concern in the first one, and we didn't,
Yep.
so, yeah. If there's nothing else, then I'll make a motion to approve the governance meeting minutes, enter policies 506 and 510 for first reading, and enter policies 502 and 503 into second or final reading.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Exner.
Thank you. Good evening. It's like I haven't seen these teachers in a while.
Where does the camera capture go?
Right straight ahead.
Where I am?
Yeah, so maybe if you stood, maybe.
I can move aside a little bit. Have it there, or?
I got the gavel going, close the meeting.
Take it over.
Just kidding.
Take it over.
Thanks for having me. I think the theme tonight that I'd like to talk about is big school, small community. We have become a big school. You come into these two buildings, and you see it every day. Every classroom is, the building is full. What I'm most proud of all of this is that we maintain small class sizes. That's incredible. That's why I say big community, or big school, small community. And that's kudos to everybody in this room that said how important that was, because as you look across the landscape of our schools these days, you get bigger, you just increase class sizes. That's how you generate revenue faster, right? And we realize that the importance of who we are is that small community. So oftentimes I'll jump into a classroom just to get some sense of space, because the school is getting big. The other sense of small community in a big school is, if you've gone through Driveline lately, you watch a caring adult hand the child to their parents. That's unheard of also. Continuing that theme that we've always been, that small community. The amount of teachers we hired to maintain that small class sizes and how these teachers in this room that have been experienced here, how they've welcomed that new staff. And what makes that a little bit easier to onboard the staff is this amazing curriculum that we have, core knowledge, right? A teacher literally comes into our school and their sport board is filled with the curriculum. There's no wiggle room to get political, apolitical, to have an agenda. It is our curriculum, and it is what has been the secret sauce of who we are. And so that, again, brings a big school, a really small community. I think about dads and donuts, that we have, and the amount of people keep growing, but it's the sense of that intimacy and learning. It makes it easier for me as the principal to call a dad up or a family member up who we've had that trusted relationship with, right? And so it's easy, to talk openly and authentically about the lives of their child. And then I think the last piece that I would go with my theme of big school, small community is just the fact that got another assistant principal. In a school this size, it was absolutely necessary, and it allows the teachers to have the supports that they need as we move forward. But I know sometimes when you're out in driveline, and we talk a lot about driveline, we talk a lot about transportation, because safety is the number one issue, getting them home and getting them there. And we really don't let parents enough in there because we don't have any space for the parents, right? But it's really, I can say tonight, it's really just kind of magic happening in those classrooms, and it continues to happen as we grow. And so I just wanted to let you know in these first few weeks, as much of a learning curve it is in growing, the brand is strong. The brand is strong. So that's all I got.
Any questions from Mr. Dexter? I guess the board should consider that.
Any questions for Mr.
Thank you. I'll let you get to the good data about the testing.
All right. And your partner.
Yay. Yeah, so I just shared with you a document here that is primarily some kind of key highlights of our MCA results last year and what was in the school report card that came out end of August, along with a few other data points from the 2024-25 school year. And it feels like we should be at this point focused on this year, not last year, but when the report card doesn't come out to the end of August, you can't really share the stuff until then. So, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to share the good, especially the good pieces and the highlights. And so, I think we won't go through each thing, we've been able to review it, but if you go down to on page, I guess it's not page numbered, but on the second page, you have, the big data that's which is basically all you see in the newspaper, which is your overall proficiency. And, you're able to see that we're significantly outperforming the state average. We're significantly outperforming South Washington County School District and North St. Paul School District, our two surrounding school districts, by a pretty dramatic margin in both math and reading in terms of the overall percentage of students that are proficient. And so, in addition to the fact that we're performing well, I think it's a little further down, but we've also improved. I think if you go down to almost the bottom of the MCA data, you have the chart or the lines. Where is it? Actually, I guess I don't have it in that format here. But one of these pages shows how we've continued to improve each of the last several years, which one of the big things is, it's one that says Woodbury Leadership Academy MCA proficiency number, a little bit up, right there. And you can see really since COVID, this is the trend since COVID. Coming back from COVID, we had 36.7% proficient in math the next year, and then it went to 49.7, then a little dip in 23, but then a significant jump last year, and again another jump this year. And so things are really trending the right direction, which I think this is important to watch. Like, as we're getting bigger, are we making sure we're not losing our quality in any way because we're getting bigger? And on that point too, and on that note, to what Principal Exner said, you know, I think when he talks about the ways that we're staying a small community, one of the things that is a reality that is kind of counterintuitive sometimes is that when we grow our overall enrollment, grow over our school, it makes it easier to keep our class sizes small, right? The more sections you have per grade, the more you're able to balance them, keep it small, and the more economies of scale you have. And so, you know, a lot of times think, oh, the school's getting big, the class sizes are, no, that's part of the way you keep growing, is part of the way you keep your class sizes small. And it helps in that process. So I think that trend is good. When you break things down by different races and ethnic groups, again, we continue to, you know, perform at really high rates. And really any of these measures that you look at, whether it's our students on free reduced lunch, whether it's our students, our Black or African American students versus the state versus the local school districts, our results are just really good. And going the right direction and continuing to improve. And I think that's a sign that we're on the right track with our curriculum, we're on the right track with our approach, and we just want to keep it going the right direction. But in addition, I mean, test scores aren't everything. Another piece that I feel really good about is, you know, you look at our teacher retention data this year, and 27 of our 30 K-6 homeroom teachers last year returned this year. And all 5 of our 7th through 9th grade teachers last year that are, you know, 7th through 10th returned. A few moved to different positions within the school, and those are counted as returned here. But, you know, we only had a few people not returned to the school, which is not necessarily the norm in charter schools. From the data I've looked at, not necessarily been the norm even at this level here. It's even improved here. So I feel like that was a good sign that teachers are wanting to return. And then you go to the next one, and our student enrollment, I mean, our student retention data is really good. Where we lose students is from going to 5th grade to 6th grade when they hit the middle school. We only have about 60% return for that window, going from 5th to 6th. But a few years back, that was in the 40s, and then it got to the 50s, and now it's 60s, so it's continued to get better. And the other place, you know, now that we have high school, there's a number of students that choose to go to a big high school. So these numbers don't reflect those 2 grades, but it reflects students, you know, returning here. And when you have 93% in entering grades 1 through 5 returning, you know, of the 38 that didn't return, there's a certain number of those were families that just moved locations too. So feeling like teachers are choosing to stay, families are choosing to stay, those are good signs. And then I shared the family survey results from last spring, which maybe I shared before, but I was just trying to put this all in one document, which, you know, families expressed overall strong satisfaction with our communication, with the academic instruction, and even the social emotional needs being met. Was there's only 8 respondents that had something less than that they were okay. So I think that's all positive. We need to get better return rate. We need to send these surveys out earlier for the family survey next round. But so all positives in terms of those pieces, and just thought we would ground ourselves in that before we kind of flush last year and focus 100% on this year, now that we have all the info together. Questions?
Good stuff.
Great stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty proud of the data as a whole, to tell you the truth.
It's awesome.
So, yes. And also include on the agenda a link to the MD report card. So if anybody wants to go look where that data was pulled from, they can go right to the source. And so that's there as well.
Was there anything that, like, publicly highlighted other than just it's published, or is it just, like, we haven't, like, received accolades other than us giving ourselves a pat on the back?
No,
Okay.
I mean.
I know sometimes there's awards and
Yeah,
different things.
you know, and so there's one thing that I dug into actually yesterday, which just is that there's something called, those of you that were here a while back maybe know, called the CSB, the Charter School Program grant that the federal government gives to the states, the states actually administer it, and they're for startup schools and they're for expansion. But to apply for an expansion, which, you know, we're expanding, so I was like, ooh, maybe we can apply for expansion grant. But to apply for expansion grant, you have to be pre-identified on the list of charter schools that the state has, you know, said these are the highest quality charter schools, that they're the ones who can get grants to expand, right? And of the, I can't remember how many charter schools in the state right now, there were 15 on the list, and we weren't on the list. And I'm like, why are we not in this list with this data? What are we missing? And so I really dug into all the different data points and everything, and we weren't on the list because of one data point. And the one data point is the percentage of students that have 90% attendance. So it's not your overall, like our overall attendance percentage is like 93, 94%, something like that. But it's the percentage that have 90%, and these overseas trips and things like that really hit that with us. And we were like 2 percentage points below what we needed to be on that number. And it's actually from 2023 data on the attendance that they use.
Oh.
So this year it'll be from 2024, still not even last year's, and we were at 2 percentage points below then. So that's, we can get that up in a few years if we're still expanding, we can get that expansion grant. It's just that one, that's the only data point. And it's, you know, it's also one of those things where we are so, our staff is so good and so detailed at taking attendance. Some schools might make that in a way we don't because they're not as good at catching every single absence in their attendance, and you're like, you're almost punished for doing such a good job with that. But so in every other way, we would be on that list. Is that one? That's the one point. So we'll see what we can do to work on it, but that's where it's at.
Alright. The big decisions.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to put this where I did, because I think this little presentation has some impact in the next parts of the agenda afterwards, right? And some overlap. And this is really just a big overview right now. Like, the point is not to get into any real deep discussions on any one of these points, because any one of these big decisions on it then could be an hour-long discussion here, right? And there's about 7 of them here. It's to plant the seed. And so like I said, if you go to the second one, this is purpose today. The purpose of this presentation is just to provide a broad overview of the decisions we need to make in the coming months. In some cases, those decisions might be within the next 3 months. In some cases, it might be within the next 6 months. And some maybe decisions we'll end up being able to wait or decide to wait for a couple of years to make. But they're all things that are part of the big picture for us over the next several years, and they're very interrelated. So I felt like I wanted to share kind of the big picture before we dig into any one of them in future months. Is that tracking kind of what the purpose is today? So this is just to plant the seeds, get us thinking, and then really dig into each one in the coming months. But kind of the essential overall question is that all these things encompass is how are we going to provide the optimal student and family services and provide the quality of school and instruction and everything else that we have here while maximizing state and private and federal funding in our changing reality, through growth and through new buildings and through all of it. And so that's kind of the big, broad, overarching like thing we're thinking about. And so the big decisions, there's the first one is basically the long and short version here is 6th grade going to be in this building or over there? That's a decision. I framed it as plan A is that this is K6 and that's 7-12. But, and I've also have said, you may have heard me say, like, in some ways, what way we end up going is really going to be driven by enrollment. Because there's a good chance that the enrollment's going to dictate which makes more sense. But there also might be the possibility that enrollment might partially be impacted by what we're planning to do. And so I do think in the coming months we need to think about surveying and spending time communicating with our 5th grade families about, are you more likely to stay here if it's K6 or if it's 6-12? And maybe even a grade or two below that, because it's not just for the next year, it's over the next few years. And so I think that's a discussion. Which direction we go there, either way can work financially in the big picture when we get into it, and we're not going to get into it today. But it will impact our administrative structure, like how many principals and administrators are in each building, the way we set that up, which before we start, if we're going to add another administrator next year, having that figured out impacts where that might be and what it might look like. And that's the thing we might want to decide sooner rather than later in terms of planning. And it will impact, how the staffing looks in terms of number of specialists in this space versus number of specialists in that space. And it may impact, extracurriculars and marketing, just all kinds of different dominoes with that decision, as is the case with kind of each of these decisions. So that's one of the things that I don't know that we will want to decide in the next couple months, but we'll want to get the data, discuss what our preference is at least, whether that's plan A and plan B the way it is there, or the plan A and plan B are the other way around. And then, we'll probably need to, whatever we decide we're trying to do, be keeping it open that enrollment could dictate going the opposite way still. But
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For 6th grade, do your kids rotate teachers, or
Yes.
do they have, okay, what about 5th grade?
Yes.
Okay.
5th grade's the first grade they rotate.
Okay.
They rotate to 3 different teachers in 5th grade. They rotate to, 3 plus specialists, so 4. And in 6th grade, they rotate to 6 different teachers throughout the day. So,
Do we know why families are changing schools after 5th grade? And would that reason change if we changed 6th grade to lower school versus upper school? Because it may not have anything to do with us, it may have everything to do with outside.
and that's why when we survey, and that's why we're going to have another meeting before we even do a survey,
Right.
where we dig just into this issue of what we want to ask. Anecdotally, I have reasons, but I want to see what the data
Right.
really says. And every time I have asked this question in other places, it may not be 50-50, but it's definitely not, in my experience, 100% families don't have,
Yeah.
in terms of this, all feeling the same way on this, right? So is it divided, is it 50-50, or is it 70-30? One way could make a decision on what we're trying to make happen. And yes, we'll get into some of the reasons that we've heard, but we don't necessarily have data to know how many of it's true for or not.
I also wonder what offerings we would offer if we keep 6th grade lower school versus upper school, and how we might change that one way versus the other. Like, how are we gonna make 6th grade look different if it's lower school versus how we would make 6th grade look different if it's upper school?
All the things that we need
Yeah.
to dig deep on. And I'm gonna hold back saying more because
Sure.
I don't want to get in the weeds. I'd love to
Right.
dig into that conversation right now, but I think we should keep mulling those things over, and we'll dig into them. Probably next month, we'll start to dig really deeper into some of those questions and how we proceed in getting the information and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
understand where we're going?
I mean, I can wait to have those, but that's just like, in speaking of that, I'm like, well, what difference does it make other than maybe that doesn't make a difference, and maybe it's more on for us looking like financial and how staffing and, you know,
I
some
think it can be
more.
both. I
Okay.
think it can make a difference structure-wise, but we'll dig into that. Lot 3, when I talk about Lot 3, I'm talking about the space across the street, where right now it's a big field that we have planned to move recess over there. The initial plan that was approved by had already been approved by the city, basically soccer field, playground, pickleball courts. We're having wonderings about pickleball courts in terms of with the things we're doing, do we need to keep that for just parking to make things work if we're going to add anything more to what we're doing? And just lots of questions about that would impact space we have for future facilities, of being out of parking to support it. Where recess is and what recess looks, sounds, feels like would impact in that decision. Even what we're able to do with the space in terms of, you know, sports and extracurricular activities can be impacted by that decision. So it has a lot of interrelated pieces that we will need to either make a decision and doing part of it now and leaving the other spaces with not having to put money in to be able to decide later on, or moving forward, and we'll dig into that piece as well.
Is there a goal in timing for that one?
Well, possibly. In terms of having the recess equipment there, yes. In that implant that we're trying to see, we got it for next school year.
Great.
But the other piece of it that is like, if our construction were able to find enough efficiencies and do at a lower cost than we have budgeted, it might leave money to do some things with that space now too. So it would be, okay, if we do end up with some things costing less than what we initially budgeted, you know, that could drive it where that needs to happen in the next year or so, and we can still use it as part of this project.
I'm sure you're aware that there are a lot of community members that are very anxious to get that playground.
The playground part.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's been, you know, we've had.
You adopted that anxiousness.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we had the money set aside, and really what reason it hasn't happened yet, we have the money set aside, we've raised the money for it, right? We need to have it fit the whole plan and not do something with, you know, so moving up, purchasing the building across the street, and those pieces made it where like, we need to slow down and make sure the whole thing fits together before we just do what was there. So that's what slowed it up.
And I've tried to explain that to community members as well, that it's like, well, there's
Yeah.
puzzle pieces, unfortunately.
And so we just want to make sure we're not doing something and feeling, oh, well, I guess we have to rip all that up now and spend another $500,000 or, you know, or leave it as we don't want. That's not what we want. So that's been the hold up there.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
underground parking, has that ever been talked about? What does
I
that look like?
looked at, underground, I looked at a parking ramp
Okay.
for there, and I was blown
It's
away.
astronomical.
It is
Yeah.
astronomical cost.
It is insane.
it
We can't even afford it
I
at
can't-
the hospital right now because it's so astronomical to add a ramp.
Yeah, whatever the number was when I did it, you wouldn't even believe it if I told you. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it was like, it was a non-starter on cost.
Years ago, it was like $30,000 a space.
A space, yes.
Space.
parking
Maintaining
spot.
it is the hardest part though,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
the most expensive part. Building it is insane, but to maintain it is even more insane.
And I hadn't even looked at that. I
That
just knew
is-
the cost of
that
building it
is
was.
what hurts
was
people.
Not, non-starter. So, yes, and I can only imagine underground is even more.
Yeah.
So,
It might be cool to have a little
Oh,
down ramp for the
yeah.
teachers.
it would be a dream.
Yeah.
I want underground parking for my house, like, see the garage is like that's what I was dreaming. But anyways, back on track. So the next one is level of commitment development. And so again, this is the whole fundraising piece, and just one of the things that Jason Blumenthal presented to us last month, that is, when this facility study comes back in the next couple months, they're gonna say, okay, this is the amount we think you can raise, but this is based on me spending this percentage of time on fundraising, and if you want, you know, maybe it's, if he's spending 40 to 50% of his time on fundraising, we think you can do this, but if he's spending 10%, then we think this is the amount you can get. And I don't know what the gap will be there, and so on and so forth, but that's a big change in my role if I'm spending 40, 50% of the time. And like, even when we talked about this current school year, when I said it makes the most sense for me to be the principal over there, and I remember Carly saying, "Are you sure you can really balance all that?" I'm like, yes, but that wasn't with spending 40% of my time, 50% of my time in development. Like, that's not doable. And so it could even, you know, if we thought there was reason to really make a push this year, it could even change what we think about for the second half of this year, if not, you know, for next year. And so those are decisions the board's gonna have to decide. You know, there's gonna be no guarantees that we can do what they say we're gonna do, and is that where we want me to spend my time? And does that give us the best chance to be successful in the long term at the level we want? It's a decision we're gonna have to make. Because that in a time frame where at minimum, that decision is made in time for me to plan our administrative staffing model for next year, right? And so, because that changes depending on, you know, what we decide and at what level commitment I'm there, and we'll have to listen to them, and, you know, we'll have to talk together about what really is the best thing for our school.
I would worry about pulling in new admin in the middle of the year, smaller pool of candidates, getting an okay fit but not the best fit. I would lean toward.
Well, let's dig in within the timeline for that. Let's get this study back and we can decide some things. And there's a lot of moving parts there, right? So.
And that study has been closed, and now we're just waiting.
Well, they did the 20th interview today.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Yes.
I was really hoping they'd get more.
Yes. Well, the plan was to do 20 interviews from within our community, and then to do, you know, 10 from the foundations. And so when they initially sent me a list of foundations contact, I sent 5 letters out that they helped me create, and really didn't get any positive response about participating. And we identified that we really think that a lot of the foundations are kind of focused on more the city, and they see Woodbury and they immediately are like, there's not a need in Woodbury. And so we really want to change our focus in terms of even the initial contact with those foundations to focus on how we really don't have an achievement gap, and that we close it in ways that other people haven't. And so we paused that, kind of finished the 20 community members, and now we're going to figure out how to recircle back with foundations, and also thinking about more on the national level with foundations perhaps than the local. So there's some moving pieces there. So the goal was 20 family, you know, right within our community, and then 10 outside, and we're pretty much getting there on the community side. And then, so that will be a decision we'll have to make once the facility study comes back. Not facility, the feasibility study comes back. Another decision that we're gonna need to make, which is a decision we can put off and whatever, but we need to at least begin discussion about, is at what point, if any, do we think we want to have a separate start time for building across the street and here? And the reasons you would do that are, A, drastically reduce the number of cars that are coming in and out of rival dismissal, which we know how much we talk about that. And with us not adding another gym in this, at least in the short term, if you had your upper school start low earlier, they could use the gym before school even starts here. And when you start getting through high school, you get most of the other schools end much earlier than we do, and it can be challenging to do extracurricular competitions with other schools that don't want to start at the time we do. And you get more kids that are working that need to start jobs earlier if they're going to work. All reasons to do it. And maybe even the biggest one is you're not putting 17-year-olds in the bus with 5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
All reasons to do it. The biggest reason not to do it, very expensive.
And siblings.
Well, 2 reasons, yeah. Siblings get separated, which some families won't like,
Yeah.
for sure. But also, and this is part of what we have to flesh out, but there's a reality that, you know, even though we'd be serving the same number of kids, because of the geography we cover, I mean, so let's say right now that we have 18 buses serving 1,100 kids, right? And let's say a couple years from now, we have 1,300 kids and we have 900 here and 400 over there as a just kind of guesstimate starting point. You're probably only going to be able to reduce the number of buses in that first round by 2 or 3. You're probably going to still need 15 or 16 buses in the first round, and then you're probably
For the
getting.
high schoolers?
Well, I'm saying, for the lower school.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're probably still gonna need like 10 for the uppers with the geography you have to cover. And so now you're, for conversation's sake, having, and this is a guesstimate right now, we have to really dig in and work with Monarch and mapping everything out to see what it would really be. But I'd say we probably need another 7, 8 buses routes in order to do that. It's $70,000 a bus now, maybe $75,000 in a few years, times 8 buses is, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're talking $600,000-$700,000
As
to do
your
it.
students get older, you're gonna have students that can drive. And so maybe that will start alleviating some, you know, and then carpooling, you know, your 12th grade sibling can bring your 9th grade sibling or
So
whatever.
there's those pieces, but this piece may even have an impact on our discussion about 6th and 7th grade, because now 6th grade is starting earlier too. Like, you know, how they're all interrelated here.
Right.
And so, again, I don't, when you get in the weeds, I'm just throwing out magical data right now without, you know, guesstimates in my head without having fleshed it out. That's what's coming in the coming months. But that's a lot of teachers, a lot of bringing class sizes smaller for $600,000 to, you know, to split it up. And like, where's the tipping point? And yet, there's a lot of reasons why it does make sense. And that kind of brings you to, and I can see you want to say something, but it ties into the same thing here.
Yeah, I just hear more and more schools are going to where the younger students start first and the older students
Yes.
later.
And
What's
that-
Woodbury doing, Ashley?
Well, Shiloh's bus picks her up at like 7:15. Super early.
I just looked at it.
When Berry High School is 8.
That's a whole,
middle
that's a
school's
whole
earliest.
nother, and the only reason I say that, the main reasons I say the older school going earlier is because all our families in elementary have kind of chosen to be here already with the school start time, and that's their largest percentage, and anytime you change, you lose some families that things don't work for, right? And so there's less risk, so I think that combined with some of the other advantages, there's a lot of research that talks about there being reasons for older kids to start later. There's also a lot of reasons that schools have done to it. Some have gone back to earlier starts. I know Edina years ago was one of the first ones to go to a late start, and it really was extracurriculars and work and the other things I'm talking about that they decided to go back.
Yep.
And so when you start getting into those pieces, there's a lot on both sides of that discussion.
I was just thinking, like the sports games thing that you mentioned, just like what are the area schools doing
Oh,
to
yeah,
line
yeah,
up?
yeah, oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, okay. And I haven't dug into that yet.
South Washtenaws, like middle school start time is 7:50, high school start time is 8:30. But I think you guys have a unique situation here in that your start time is already so late that like pushing an even later start time, like your dismissal is already 4. If you're talking.
No, I don't mean pushing necessarily, just
You-
which
Yeah.
upper or lower.
You're
start
saying
time.
start elementary earlier and secondary later, maybe possibly.
Or the same.
I don't know.
At the same time right now that we start elementary, yeah.
Right, yeah, I didn't mean start anybody even later.
Well, what grades already with like competition we have now, I mean, I think of like with what these options are, because sometimes 6th grade can compete, so like if 6th grade is now in the lower,
And well,
that can
it's
screw up
a
their
middle,
extra-
and that's why I'm saying, we haven't
Yeah.
dug into those things at that level of depth yet.
Right,
And
right.
we need to do that in each of these coming presentations, and then the next one, we dig in and come back.
Right.
So, and
Yeah, it's quite a
What-
spider web.
Yeah, and they're so interconnected, all these things,
Yeah,
which is why,
exactly.
that's why I'm sharing them all. But then, that decision also, if we do go to 2 and there's that much cost, that may move when, how, to what extent we want to think about doing more of our own transportation. Because in doing a single route, if we were to do it, the savings would be very minimal until the buses were paid. Like if you finance the bus for 10 years, or 7 years, let's say, right? You have and we're only doing 1 round of busing. We wouldn't save that much over contract. We save a little bit, from what I figured out. But you start doing the 2 tiers, and now you're hiring drivers, and now you're saving significantly even before the buses are paid off that you're doing. You're taking on a whole nother thing, a whole nother department, that takes focus off of other things that people's attention go to, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of reasons why it's challenging, but I think if we go to the 2 tiers, you're getting to a place where the difference financially is so big that we almost have to really at least start the process of, we may even want to make a decision to start with, have something with Monarch where, still having some anticipated growth, maybe we go from 18 to 19 routes next year and we do 1 ourselves. And we just pilot one bus that we're doing, where we're working out a deal with them to provide the maintenance and that kind of thing, but at least start to build a little bit of capacity for the future. It's all tied into this discussion. It's something we really need to come back to.
But in the meantime of getting there, we also have to consider, before we have our own busing, can Monarch or somebody else bus for the other start time? Or are they all full up?
Right. That's another reality too. And also, typically when you are 3rd tier, which we are, as expensive as busing is, it's a little bit less when you're the 3rd tier. Right? So they usually charge more for the earlier tiers because and there's more, because more people want earlier starts, there's more availability. And we did, put out a request for proposal on busing this year, and we ended up only having really 1 other proposal, and they ended up deciding that they weren't sure their capacity was able to really service it this year. So that's all tied in, right? So a lot to think about there. And then, we've emphasized throughout this, multiple times as being how much we value our class sizes being small. But if you talk about, adding that busing being $600,000-$700,000, adding 1 student per class would cover that cost almost. And it's the numbers we're at right now, the numbers that are, if you add 1 student per class, we still have pretty small classes. If you add 2, we still, is this the place that, these are a hard cap for us in terms of our long term, and you look at some of these other things. And that's a decision we just need to think about in terms of, certainly it's what makes us strong. We certainly don't want them to go up much, but is there, or under what circumstances are we open to considering raising it by 1 student or by 2 students at some point? And maybe there's no circumstance, I'm not saying that, but it ties into, okay, we really, really, really think having the multi-tier thing is there, but boy, we can't come with $600,000 out of budget. 1 more student per class would cover most of that. Maybe that changes, maybe we're not changes our thinking about it. And so all things that we just need to dig into and start to think about.
Probably getting too far in the weeds too, but backing up to the bus thing, and if we brought in our own in-house and all that, with that, to me, comes a bus garage, and do we even have, would we have to get another?
You wouldn't necessarily have to have
property?
You wouldn't, we could store the buses in the teardrop.
Okay.
Like other schools, like New Millennium, which is closer to my house, I drive by them, they have their 10 buses out in their parking lot every night, year round. But bus garage in terms of repair and maintenance,
Oh, yeah.
that's where we would
There are
have
places.
to. Yeah, well, and that's where we'd have to almost partner, like, we'd want to try and work something out with a monitor.
Can you set up something for us?
Yeah, maybe where they're still doing some buses, you know, so they still have some skin in the game, like, and we have maybe we buy some of their older buses to help us get started instead of buying new buses, and try and do some things to make it worthwhile for them to help us with the parts where we don't have the expertise. It would take a lot, there'd be a lot of pieces to make it work well. I do think it's doable,
Okay.
but I do think it's until you really get all the way in, you won't, you have the, in theory, but with so few people to partner with in the area, it really depends to some degree on their willingness.
There might be some unknowns that you discover.
Yeah, I mean, or you just don't know how they're gonna, people you might partner with would react in the long run. And I think partnering with somebody and gradually doing more and more of our own is a lot more realistic than saying we're gonna take over all 18 of our buses and do this in one shot. And that's why I'm saying even doing one to start to figure out what we don't know, you know, might be a place to start. And maybe the next year we can do 2 or 3, but we're building towards if this is where we're gonna go, like.
Then you get to a point where you've got all those buses and you want them in the teardrop, but then where are the students gonna do recess for those grades that spend time in the teardrop
Right.
once you have so many, like one
Right.
bus, whatever, but
I have
like
some
a bunch,
ideas. Yeah, no,
a bunch
that's,
of dominoes there.
well, and that's where what we do with lot 3 could impact that and how much space we could, right? So it's, again, that's why I'm thinking about all this
And
stuff.
if you start thinking about students driving, we're gonna need parking for the students to drive.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's
So
what
many
that,
dominoes.
so many, yeah. So we just, you know, we may be at a point where we need to, you know, I don't know if we, in the next year, want to relook at strategic planning process, but I think the strategic planning, the way we would probably want to think about what our work is a little different than you would typically think about strategic planning, which is focused, tends to be more focused on things we're already really succeeding at, right? And it's really about maintaining our success while we are growing and building this. And the growing and building, while it has its pains, again, the efficiency that comes with it, and the advantages of having the K-12 and all those different pieces and being able to have just K-5 or K-6 and not be intermixed with 7th, 8th, 9th. There's so many advantages overall in the long run that come with the pain points that we'll have along the way, that I do think we're making the right decision, adding high school and continuing to grow into the space, but it's not without its struggles. And so we just need to have a plan. And I think that will tie into, we got one more agenda item first, but when we talked about my goals at discussion. And so let's, yeah, maybe should we move to the committees and then we'll talk about my goals.
All right, committees. So last month, I'm assuming we decided to go with the superintendent goals and communications committee assignment, which is exciting.
Well, I think I put a question mark next to those.
You put a question mark next to when they meet.
To what?
To when they meet. So,
Yeah, well, that was,
okay.
I think it was also, we hadn't formally adopted
Okay.
either one yet. It was, the discussion around it had been quarterly.
Got it.
Maybe I should have put question mark in both places after, you know, the timing. But I think there was 2 pieces here. One, just making sure, we also had to make a decision who was serving on what committee. We had different discussions, were some first-year board members gonna, you know, not serve on committee, or if we're adding these, are they, and who's on these different pieces. And I will say for development, Greg Sane, who was a former board member, is willing to chair that committee, or be a major player in it. And when Jason presented last month, didn't he suggest kind of quarterly was about how often it would meet? Does that sound right? So, and I just think having some collaboration with me and a few board members, and the board members coming back to the board makes sense in terms of setting goals and making sure that there's good communication between the board and myself. And it's hard to do that freely when you have the whole board together in an open meeting. And so having a small committee that meets quarterly just to.
The goal was to still have someone from the board be on that, correct? Like, it was like one person from the board was gonna be on the development committee?
Yep.
Along with other community members?
Yes.
Okay.
But then on the superintendent goals and communication, that was just 2 or 3 board members. Was the idea.
Right.
That would communicate back with the other board members. Was the thought. And yeah, so it'd be to have one person. So, I mean, we really don't need to really get that development committee up and going until after the feasibility study comes back and we decide how we're moving forward, right? I think it would be more important, depending on our next discussion about, will I share kind of some thoughts about my goals, and with the board's feedback there, may determine whether it makes sense to get that up and running right away or not. We'll have that discussion next. But I think at least making sure we know who's on finance and governance, who's not, and who might be interested in these, or it's under discussion, it's not action right now still. And so I just want to make sure, like I was even trying to remember who was on which committee right now and so on and so forth. And I know that Colleen, you're on finance, and Allison.
And then there's 4 of us that are on governance.
Right. And that almost seems overkill.
Right.
Because I think as every new member came on, we just said do governance because it's like a good way to get to know things, but now
Right.
that we're so new, I think it may be time for some people to push it.
Maybe off of governance and into the development or
Yeah.
superintendent goals kind of thing.
Yeah.
Two board members on governance is probably enough, right?
Yep.
Intense.
It's been quite, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I have been checking my phone because we have lost electricity and he thinks that 2 houses down is on fire because it got like, there was a big lightning strike and then like all of the power went out and then within minutes there was like our whole street is now covered in policemen or fire trucks. So he's like, I think the house like 2 down is on fire right now. I'm like, okay. keep checking to see, make sure we're safe.
I mean, we're getting long in this meeting and we have some things that are gonna take a little time left. Is there a way to move forward without having, like, to get here without having a big discussion here right now? Like sending out a
Yeah.
survey or something? Or you sending out forms for people to fill out, and then if there's not people in the right places, you kind of as a board chair reach out to people and
Because
figure it
right
out?
now it's just a discussion and no action.
Yeah.
So maybe just the committee members, like in a survey can,
Say what they're interested in, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get something sent out.
Okay, I think that would be good.
Okay.
I think we're gonna lose focus here if we dig into that one right now as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the draft goals for,
And I don't even know if these are the draft goals or not. I'm gonna frame it for you as, I come back to the essential question we started with earlier in the presentation about how are we gonna provide optimal student family services while maximizing state and federal funding. That I was thinking about that and the presentation I did about the big decisions we have ahead when I was thinking about what goals to propose or how to propose where we go here. And I really came up with kind of 2 broad categories of what I think my focus should be this year. And I want to chuck in with that and then decide, I mean, these are not specific measurable goals. These are not what they call SMART goals. These are broad, like, here's the, and so seeing if we agree on these things or not, and then do we think that we want to go in and have more specific goals under each of these things, or do we want to keep it more broad for this year, or I think I'm open to wherever, but I just wanted to share how we were thinking, get some feedback before I made any specific recommendations. But so I felt like there's really kind of 2 pieces. One is how do we, in collaboration with the board, staff, and families, develop a sustainable plan that addresses the questions above, right? And really addressing that question above is about all those decisions that just pretend we need to make, right? And whether we make them all this year or not, but kind of managing that whole thing and developing our plan, I think, is a big focus of what needs to come out of the end of this year, you know, that I need to lead and get us to by the end of the year. And at the same time, we need to manage with the growth we've had this year and all this stuff we're planning. We need to make sure we maintain our strong operations and quality programming while this is happening. So it's very broad and non-specific, but it's just like make sure that things are continuing the way they're going on the positive path they are, and we're not dropping the ball on other things because we're so focused on the growth in the future. And that's kind of like the two pieces, like if you look at it from the really high level that I see. And when I started to try and make specific goals about how to do that, I felt like there were so many different components that there were going to be too many. And then I got stuck about where I mean, this I'm clear about in my head. And I think the starting point is saying, is this what the board, do we agree that this is kind of my role to make those two things happen this year? You tracking where I'm at right now?
So number one is more about strategic planning.
Yes, I don't know if I was using that word, but
Okay.
it is really about making our plan for the future while addressing all, and maybe we can't address all those questions this year, but while considering all those and starting to make a plan, that we need to be planful about how we're moving forward. And a big piece for me is while I'm spending time making sure the high school's going well, that this is really my role as a superintendent, and making sure that we are not getting to a place where we're reactive to the growth and everything that's happening, and that we have a plan. And it may not be it may very well be a very, you know, I talk at times about you make a plan and then we monitor and adjust. It may be a very loose plan that we have to see how some things play out and, you know, be prepared to adapt and adjust. But we need to have a plan and really be thoughtful at our level about our growth and our, you know, changing reality moving forward, and making sure that we're not getting to where we're reactive to what's happening there. I think me making sure that we're doing that in an effective way, I think is what I would propose to think as a board member that you would want for me. But I want to check that with you. And then at the same time, not being only focused on the future where things operationally are falling, you know, apart. I do think my role right now, in order to do number one well, I have to really be good at delegating, having the right people, and providing oversight, but not being in the weeds on number two, right? And at a level that maybe, you know, is very different than what was needed here 3 years ago, right, when we were much smaller, in terms of, you know, we have more people involved in the process. I think we've still been relatively conservative, or in terms of our, you know, even though our administrative team has grown, right now we have, I was doing the math in my head this morning, and, you know, 2 years ago we had 8 people doing what we have 10 doing now, but per student it's a lot less than it was, you know, with growing from 700 students to 400. It's like a, you know, one person. When I say administrative, I'm counting Cassidy, I'm counting Nicole Link, I'm counting, you know, Megan Nafe, a curriculum person. But I think it's one person, one of these roles, including me, for every 135 students now, where it was one for every 105 2 or 3 years ago. So, you know, my point is we still have really high quality people in all of these positions. We have a really good administrative team, and so I'm not a principal, and I need to be careful of not spending too much time in the weeds, while at the same time making sure that it's happening and that the quality is staying there. And this is how I'm seeing my role. And maybe the board needs to think about this a little bit. Maybe this is more of a deeper discussion with that committee and back and forth. But and whether or not we want to have more specific, I have pretty specific goals last year in comparison to the way this is framed. And so, I don't know, I'm open to thoughts and conversation, and.
Do you think there'd be some crossover between those two committees with this, like the development and the superintendent goals and communications, like with what they're both, it seems like there'd be some commonality between the two, maybe with. Are you envisioning the development?
The development's really
Or
about,
to
it's really about the big fundraising.
Take the plan, okay, just.
It's not about developing the strategic plan.
All right.
It's not about, it's really about the big fundraising piece,
Okay,
right? And again, where the board lands on that could alter, and the timing of where we land can alter a little bit
okay.
my role too, but.
I think, I like your goals. I think they're the right goals for our school. I think they're gonna be difficult to really measure.
Right.
And that's where we're all gonna potentially get stuck on. But I think they are the right goals for our school for this year.
I wonder if number one can be a bit more clear. I think that it, maybe if you mention your slideshow that you just addressed and just kind of link it to that, because I think that's what you're saying, right? Like, that you would manage that piece.
Yes, in collaboration with the board,
Exactly.
input from family
Exactly.
and the
Exactly.
community and staff and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. But making sure that all of those things are moving forward and that we're considering all of them as we're making decisions. And, you know.
So mentioning that instead of saying, addressing that essential question. So just saying, like, in collaboration with the school board and staff, family development, like, that you're addressing whatever that was.
A sustainable plan that addresses, like, the big question. So how many of them were there?
I don't know, there was.
Or does it kind of become part of your goals?
I think that's-
Document as one, like, it's like,
Yeah.
that's part of the reference with it, maybe, to go
Maybe.
with one?
I think that's where we can wordsmith that with the smaller group,
Yeah,
right? I think your point is well taken. I don't think it's worded very clearly.
yeah.
And I think it's a fair point. In trying to get, I was trying to, in the language, make it clear that I'm not doing this stuff myself. I'm
Yes.
working
right.
with the community collaboratively to figure out where we're going here. And it is my job to make sure we're moving forward
Right.
and that we are, we're staying on track where we're not getting reactive. And that we're as planful as we can be. And so I think the wording on that, I agree, we can call it out more. But maybe that's where it's missed with that group, which hopefully we get established.
So I think as a placeholder, it's fine.
Yep.
But then just
Agreed.
playing with number one.
Yep.
We get that development group going and they can hammer it out.
Yeah. And if it's not specific measurable goals.
Superintendent goals.
Yep. If we decide that for this year, we're not gonna have specific and measurable goals, then I think it's naming that and saying,
Yeah.
these are qualitative goals for this year, that's our plan for the long time, but there being some recognition that that's a little bit more of a qualitative
I
thought.
think we could measure I think we could measure the fact that you're making, you're pushing us ahead and making decisions on that presentation that you had.
Yeah.
I think we can measure that, like, we can, there may not be all of those decisions made, but definitely
That's what
decisions.
would worry we'd get hung up on, like, not making decisions is making a decision, and maybe
Right.
it's the right decision to not make a decision.
Right.
But-
We may decide to make only 2 of these decisions this year.
Yeah.
Right.
But we've
But that's
considered
what we
all,
didn't
we've
fail by
considered
not
all the,
doing
so
the
are we
rest.
concerned about saying, writing a specific goal that is we're gonna make all 7 of these decisions this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right,
but we need to be moving forward on this with all of it in mind. And so, again, I think the committee can wordsmith it, but it does feel to me like the things that you would typically do that are much more measurable goals, are in a good place with all of them right now, right? So it's not like we need to, yes, we want our test scores to continue to improve, but they're good. It's not like that needs to be my number one focus right now. And financially, we're solid right now. It's not like we need to measurably say we gotta increase our fund balance to this amount. It really is, I feel like, and those are all things that happen anyways with our evaluations with VOA and their oversight of us. And the state and they're gonna come out anyways. It's not like that data is not gonna be collected and you're not gonna have that. And if things are going the wrong direction, then a year from now, you're saying, okay, we need to get this back on track. We need to make something measurable here. So,
With everything that's going on in our more immediate future, like the next 6 to 9 months, I think the broad goals are very appropriate. Because there's a lot that will flex.
yep.
And goals will change, so this just gives us
Yep.
the broad window to shoot through, and who cares which
Yep.
vein you hit.
And like with that in mind, really, I think the purpose of the committee is, if we're saying meeting quarterly, during the next 6, probably we don't have that committee till the next meeting, but sometime before Thanksgiving at least, we've wordsmithed them. And then sometime, in February, March, we're meeting to talk about progress and are we on track to do what we're hoping to have done by the end of the year. And then at the end of the year to check back in and the committee report to the board before my evaluation kind of thing. That's how, we agree with that kind of thought about what it would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick side note, we started talking strategic plan and I started looking through some things. So before you were here back in 2022, we hired Bruce Smiles, and I think I'm the only person left on the board from them, to come in, and he led us through creating and developing a strategic plan. And upon reviewing materials currently right now, it was a 3-year plan from March of 2022. So in March of 2025, we probably should have revisited and developed a new strategic plan. And I think knowing that we're moving into a direction of growth and such, it's probably worth figuring out if that's something we want to do sometime sooner than later.
Is that something that you would have a board retreat over and talk about what a strategic plan might look like?
Yeah, so we hired an outside agency to come in and they let us through the whole process. They did they had meetings with parent groups, they had meetings with student groups, they collected all sorts of different data. And then yes, we had a afternoon that we set aside for us, and he broke us into different groups to work on different things. And
I can't believe that was
he
3
let
years
us through all
ago,
of
3
it.
years ago already.
I know.
Wow.
And so the thing I would say is that one approach, and a very common approach is what you're saying, is you had a 3-year plan, and you worked it, now you go back and redo the process and make a new 3 or 5-year plan. And we may want to do that. I know the districts and places that I've worked, the place where I felt the strategic plan had the most impact was when I was in Osseo. And Osseo had a really comprehensive strategic plan, and you're like, when you have too many things on there, you can't really focus on any of them. You end up doing none of them really well. But what they did is they had their plan, and then they had their 16 to 20 different items under different categories that were part of their plan, and they would identify priority results each year. So these 4 things, 3 or 4 things, and the priority didn't mean you weren't doing the other 16 things,
Right.
but these are the things that you were giving you may direct more of your resources to this year.
Right.
In terms of financial. These are the things you're reporting specifically out to the board on this year. And then you get to the end of the year, and at the end of the year, the board would look with the superintendent and then say, these 2 need to be priority results again next year. These 2 we don't think can go into kind of just our regular work, and this one. And so they ended up having the same strategic plan for, 10 years or something, in a way that I felt still impacted things, because this is what you're reporting on, this is what getting your focus. I think part of the challenge here is Shelby's the only one in this room that was part of this process in the beginning. It's not something that anybody in the board has said a word to me about in the 16 months I've been on the board, the strategic plan. It's not something I own or have been focused on right now.
No.
Right? And I looked at it closely before I interviewed for the job and made sure that there wasn't anything in it that I wasn't comfortable supporting, but I haven't really thought about it since then.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so maybe what's there is something that we can reaffirm and go back and do, but as we're thinking about these big questions, I just think we really need to be thoughtful about this process and
Yeah, it was definitely a box that we checked. It wasn't, and it was like here's our fancy words, but I don't think it was ever really something
I mean,
that we.
To go pay somebody to come help us through this
Right.
whole process that doesn't really drive our work
Right.
doesn't make sense. If it's going to, we need to do it in a way where we really own it and it really,
Reflects.
and if you start from scratch with and do the process as big as you do, we're getting behind our timeline and answering
Right.
any questions too, right? So I just think we need to be thoughtful.
Do we need to have something in place though, like legally in writing? Because if our other one technically expired in March of 21, we need to legally have something in place, or no?
Well, I would ask,
Hey, guest speaker over there. Do we need to have something in place?
Yeah, and I'm gonna reserve the answer to that, but I definitely check, with
Rod.
Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always just say we're voting to.
Yeah, we're adding it to the agenda for next
Yeah,
month.
but I mean, we could always, I mean, if it's checking back, you could always.
Yeah.
We're extending the surgery plan
Yeah.
back to another
Yeah,
2
that's
years or
true.
something, right? I mean, I think it's probably more of a governance piece with
Yeah.
VOA than it is a legal piece.
Okay.
But, yeah, okay, so that's that. Well, moving forward, this is kind of the broad agreeing, but we'll wordsmith that with the committee when the committee is set, I hope for the next meeting, and move forward. We all feel good about all that?
Yep.
Good. Okay, this is something we kept putting off at governance, because we always have too much in our governance meeting. And finally, when Charlie suggested we just cover this at the broad board meeting, I think it was fine. But there are two pieces. Well, actually, I was talking about the bylaws in general. I forgot that this is a piece before the bylaws in general that is part of bylaws. But our bylaws right now say that we have 3 parent representatives, 3 teacher representatives, 3 community representatives. State law requires 1 of each at a minimum. And I think the 3 of each is fine. But the recommendation that I was gonna make is that now that we're, by next year, gonna have, the upper school be at least 25% of our school, and moving, towards more, that in terms of representation, it might make sense to have specifically call out that 2 of the parent representatives and 2 of the teacher representatives are from the lower school and 1 from the upper school, just making sure the upper school is represented. And I also think it's kind of harder for people in the upper school to get elected potentially, because you have so many less people there.
Mm-hmm.
And even a lot of people that are there had all the elementary teachers before. A lot of people that would run our upper school teachers, most of the community doesn't know. And so I'm concerned that we won't ever get the representation unless we're. So that's just a recommendation I was gonna make. I thought we should consider before we fill that open parent seat.
Is that something that we need to write into our bylaws, or we can have as a preference?
No, we would need to write it in.
Because
And then are
anybody,
we gonna
any,
struggle to find that representation?
that's.
Because then if it's written into the bylaws, we have to abide by it, and we might not be able to, like, there might not be anybody in the upper school that wants to run for the school board.
We'll have to connect with those people and have them step up and,
I can be persuasive.
yeah.
And maybe we have
I
a
mean-
provision that
Yeah.
if we do not have any candidates, then they can, maybe do a 1-year term for a 3rd lower school seat if we want to fill the seats.
How does that affect our current board members who are lower school?
Well, I don't even know,
And I think that would be my seat.
Yeah.
Oh, no, so I just wanted to put that out
wait,
there.
this is only your 2nd year on the board.
This is my second year.
You have a 3-year term. So it would be whoever's term is up after this year, right? If we were gonna change it for the teacher, whose term?
It's technically Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Maybe Ivan will.
What if we worded it as, for the teacher one, and for both of them. 2 of the 3 teacher representatives work primarily in the lower school, and 1 of the 3 teacher representatives work primarily in the upper school. If there are no candidates for these categories, then it would be open to,
Okay, so it makes sense what you're both saying.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the logistics of it. So we don't know if there's no candidates until the deadline to apply,
mhm.
right? So now the deadline to apply, so now do we extend the deadline to open it up? Do we make the deadline early?
No, then it would just be, instead of picking 2 of the people that applied from the lower, we would vote on 3.
And it would be Allison, just because the seat she took.
I occupied someone else's seat.
It would be Allison.
So whoever ran, like when the voting opens, instead of only being able to vote for 2, you would vote for 3 from the candidate pool of the lower school.
I mean, I just know that right now we really don't have any upper school representation.
Yeah,
And I think that's less than ideal
yeah.
as you're thinking about things. That's
Yeah.
my concern.
Mhm.
We don't have to, I mean, the only reason we have to act on this now would be if we felt the urgency to fill the open position.
Right.
Or
Right.
we could just fill the open position anyways,
We could-
separate from this and make this effective next
Yeah,
June first,
yeah.
or we can make it the year after that so that it doesn't affect people or 2 years, on
Yeah.
board right now. Or
Yeah.
I think there's different ways we can word it, but
If we
that's the concern I have.
do Right now, I mean, what grade is technically in the upper, what's the start of it? Because isn't it? like-
Isn't there only like 4 teachers over there?
So if you got a parent that's 6th versus 7th versus.
Well,
Right.
I don't know.
the spot we have open right now is parent, and
Well, that's what I'm saying.
and also, there's a legitimate point that if you're just have a student at that age, typically you start to be, parents start to be less involved and less wanting to, and that's where you more likely to get somebody who has 3 kids in the school, and one of them is,
Yeah.
upper from the parent standpoint.
We see
Yeah.
that representation at the PTO meetings
Yes.
as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, and we've been I was at this past PTO meeting, and there's already a lot of talk, like, we have to make sure the upper school's represented with the PTO events and money and all that. So this is gonna be super, super important, but I don't think it's that important right now.
Fair.
Yeah.
Can we
Fair, yeah.
revisit it like at the end of this school year?
Or we could, so it doesn't slip, I would say, yeah, revisit at some point during the school year still.
Or
In
like
terms
That
of-
piece though,
January?
but we still have
Oh,
other
yeah.
items from BOA that we have to
Yes,
update.
this is a separate board item before that,
Oh,
right? They're actually 2 separate items. That's what I got confused about when I first started talking. This was separate from the bylaws in general.
okay.
And so we can vote to table this,
Yes.
but then,
But it's a discussion item,
but
so we don't have to vote.
then the piece is, we have a parent seat to fill, are we just gonna vote, hold off on that right now? And I don't think our bylaws specifically say we have to fill it within a specific amount of
I
time.
don't believe
I didn't see
so.
anything in there that said that.
I also wonder what decisions we're making without upper school in mind. Like, I hear your point, but I'm wondering, are we making decisions based on only our elementary or lower school ideology and lens?
Mhm.
Or are we trying to make decisions as a whole? And I would say, like, when I'm voting or I'm making decisions, I'm not just using my lens of what's best for me in 3rd grade.
Mhm.
I am making decisions and based off of the whole network. So to pigeonhole it, I mean, I don't know, with a school, I don't know, our size.
I agree. I think all of us are here because we are good at making broader decisions, but I can also say that just being at this PTO board meeting on Tuesday, Dee was bringing a perspective that the rest of us are not yet seeing because she's
Or-
there.
Yeah.
So even though we're thinking about them, we're not there day to day to see
Right.
what's going on.
And the reality is, that really is the concern, is making sure the perspective is on the table. Because the reality is, even with this, 2/3 of the board, of the people will be representing the lower school.
Yeah.
If people weren't doing that, you'd still have the votes, It's more about having the different perspectives,
Yeah.
the things
Yeah.
that you're not even seeing that are happening. And I'm the only person to bring that lens.
Do we need the voices monthly, like every single month, or can you just be convincing and pull people to certain meetings where applicable?
That's a possibility too. I mean, again, we can table this.
Yeah.
What do you think about? and maybe we're at a point where filling that open seat is something we want to table right now too.
Yeah.
But this, if we wanted to consider this and filling that open seat, that's why I wanted this to be on the table tonight. Right?
Has anybody expressed interest in the open seat?
No, we haven't advertised it, or we haven't really.
There was
mention
one
on
for-
here.
No, I take that back, we did.
So there was one that was interested in June for the community, but then she's now a parent, so she'd probably still be. I have that name, I can look up if we want, but.
Yeah, I mean, okay. But I would think we would want to put out the board,
Yeah.
we'll take interested names or applications until whatever date, if you're interested in being considered to be appointed or something. Right, maybe we want to do that.
Do we want to do that?
Do we want to do that now?
Is there a reason we need to like work on filling it?
Other than.
I didn't see anything in the bylaws that said we have a specific time frame we have to fill it in. You know, it was a position that became available because somebody who was elected as a parent, the child no longer goes here, and their bylaws say that they are automatically not on the board anymore. Right, and so I don't see anything in our bylaw that would say we couldn't just wait till the next election, but you guys would want to think about practice, like what's our tipping point? If we have 2 board members that happens with, do we not fill it? Do we have, you know, our bylaws don't address that at all in either way. So based on that, if we're bylaws don't address it, we kind of have some flexibility as long as we stay within state law and our BOA contract. I'm not sure of anything in our BOA contract that would.
Has it always historically been, and it's probably more of a Shelby question, to try to fill it if you can, and if you can find somebody and there's somebody interested, and then for reasons of like, if somebody's on vacation or whatever, and make sure you still have quorum at every board meeting.
But quorum is
or-
based on total members appointed, not like
True.
seats.
True.
I also think though, like, what if what if one other parent steps down? Then we're only have one parent. Like, I think it's worth attempting to fill and at least sending something out to parents to say, hey, this is where we're at. We have an open board position for parents. Please let us know if you're interested. I think we need to make a conscious effort to fill the spot.
I could do like a survey, and then they'd have to do it by a certain date, and then get that information to you to interview.
Is there
Do we want to set
interested?
the date, do we want to have that date be sometime before the next board meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say let's try and get the interest by the next board meeting. I don't think we're gonna be
By
able to.
Friday before the next board meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to like fill it before the next board
No,
meeting.
but at the
But
next
yeah.
board meeting, we at least know if we have any applicants or how many.
And then we can talk
and then-
about,
And that could, if we have
That
5
can
people
lead
interested, we
this
can probably have a different
conversation.
process than if we have one.
Yeah.
One.
yeah,
Can
Right.
we use names publicly?
Yeah, because it's public,
Okay.
it's public information anyway, like even in a traditional school district, you file to run as public information.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll do the
so
deadline.
by the 17th.
Okay, can they fill out the same thing, like the same answer the same questions that we typically do?
Is one of those questions what graders, I guess you know what grade their students are in, if we
I can
wanted to
find-
look
yeah, I
at
can find that.
upper versus lower. Okay. Alright. Bylaws.
I actually think this can be really pretty quick, unless there's somebody has, but the first link is the current bylaws, which really isn't that relevant right now. The second link under 7.71 is the feedback that Rod Hankey from VOA gave us about our bylaws when he did a regular review of our bylaws and the things that were missing or needed to be changed. And so in this document, I went in and added the things that needed to be added. And they're pretty specific. It's kind of subjective where you add them in the bylaws, but they were added. And so if you go to the link that shows proposed revisions, 7.12, of course, the version I had that was editable wasn't formatted very well, but it's the things in red. There's just some strikeouts in red, that just,
Verbiage.
is verbiage, but then it, like this was required, one of the things required was to change the thing about the ex officio member of the board, and that could be the only one, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. I mean, it's all cut and pasted from then. The one thing that we want to take out of this then is I put in the recommendation I had right here, this part right here,
Mm-hmm.
and so we want to strike that out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you'll be able to edit in a second, or I will be able to in a second. But the rest of it is just, I didn't change anything else other than what VOA told us we needed to change.
So you're saying beginning July 1st, but in, I don't know, under Board of Directors, and then right above the section 3, it says, new members to the board shall take their office upon being seated at the first meeting in July, whereupon those whose term is expiring shall step down, which makes it sound like the term is from that July meeting to the July meeting, not the first.
Wait,
So
well,
they just need to line up. I don't care which one you
but
choose.
we're crossing all this off anyways. Because this was on the recommendation that we just said we're not
Okay.
doing right now.
Yeah.
So I'm Xing this out right now, striking that out.
But is the July 1st anywhere else? I know I've heard that July 1st from you before as well.
July 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year and like the school year for everything with MDE, so the purpose was to make the changes for after the next election if we had done that.
It doesn't
Right.
look like it.
It's not in anywhere else.
Okay, so we can leave the old.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do say one thing that, one of the things we had to do was specify how many terms you could serve.
Mhm.
So I proposed here that there's no limit to the number of terms.
Mm-hmm.
Has that ever been a problem?
Not
Okay.
that, not to my knowledge.
There's not like, you've been a board member for too long.
Like, the last teacher seat, she was on the board for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. I really does remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
if
that never
anything, I'd say
affected
it's
anything.
Okay, I would just wanna make sure that like nobody's taking up a seat where another voice couldn't be heard.
Well, every 3 years you have to rerun for your seat.
Right.
So, I
But if
mean,
there's no one else to run, you go
Right,
back.
yeah.
Right, right.
but if there is new people, then there is the opportunity, like the position, it's not a guaranteed.
In their
renewal.
campaign, they can make the case that we should have more voices in there.
Yeah.
You know, and all the mailings they send out and the door-to-door thing they do. and- so-
This is such a highly paid position.
Yeah. I guess the other thing here, I guess, is that we had to include what the process, we had to include what it says here to change the board's governance structure. And I guess one question I would have, if we were gonna adopt what we did, I would probably want to double check and make sure that that's not considered changing our governance structure. You know, the lower, we didn't do it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But this wording is all specific from them that we need to have in there, so, or from Rod.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything, unless there's other parts of the bylaws that people want to look at right now, the stuff that's changed in here with taking out the term thing, it's all stuff that came that we kind of have to do, so I don't think it's.
There's a
probably-
really quick grammar thing.
Oh, okay.
If you scroll up to the first set of changes, it says 3 community members who resides. It should say reside.
Thank you.
Yeah, up higher. Up, top of that page, I think. Yeah, 3 community members, because previously it said members, so it should say reside instead of
Members who
resides.
reside.
Got it.
Did you add, they want modified bylaws modified to set the number of terms an individual may serve as an officer of the board? Did you, I didn't see that in your edits. Did you put it somewhere that I missed?
Because an officer would be people that are serving on committees.
Treasurer, secretary, chair?
Oh, gotcha.
Mhm.
So there is no limit to the number of terms, but then we need to state whether there is a limit to the number of terms an officer can be elected as an officer or appointed as an officer.
Up attached.
Going back to the,
So 6 of 15 was the term.
going back to the WA document, I think you're right, but I may have missed that.
Like stating how long they can be.
It says I wrote that I added on page 5, but did I not add it on page 5? Did I just make that up? Page 4, there's that. Okay, how about this? Ready? So there's no limit to the number of terms the board member may serve, and there is no limit, unless you guys want to have a discussion about this, but no limit to the number of terms a board member may serve as an officer. As an officer of the board. Is that what we want? Did that not have a limit for officers as well?
Yeah, I think that's good.
I just think anything.
I think most people shy away from doing that, so I think it's okay.
I mean, I just think anything that makes it harder to fill and get
Right.
boards prepared to have, you know, if we don't want that, then we can, be that reason that we say, hey,
It might be difficult because you could have a year where you have a new board member serving on as an officer, and that might not be ideal. Right? If
If
you
we
had
add
to
limits.
rotate,
Oh,
right? If you had to
Yeah.
rotate enough, you
And-
might
and-
have a year
Yes.
where you might have one new board member serving as an officer,
Yeah.
and that might not be ideal.
yeah.
If you
Especially
had
this
to-
past year.
Yeah, I think it just gives you less flexibility. I think it just makes sense to have. no.
Yeah.
I don't think I even.
It does make the most sense,
I
right?
think it's kind of volatile.
All right, so I think if we feel like this is solid on this, I would suggest that we move it from just a discussion item to an action item.
Can we do that in this meeting, or do we have to wait until next
Well, that's a good question.
board meeting? Since we've already approved the agenda.
One other question is, does this need to go through governance or not?
I don't think it does.
Okay.
Because we have the whole board in the discussion, right? We do going through governance so that the board doesn't have to have the full discussion on everything, right? And can advise.
A lot of this is like required change, so what's
Yeah.
governance gonna discuss about
And
it?
frankly, governance, we can't get through everything on our agendas anyways right now, so.
And William's the only one missing. We cannot vote
And so,
him.
I'm gonna go with Allison, the truth is I'm not positive, but I'm gonna go with, based on the fact that it's an agenda item on here, already, even though it's not called out as an action item, that we can still act on it.
A member must formally make a motion to amend the adopted agenda, which is the.
I will make a motion to amend the adopted agenda and turn this item number 7.7. What?
7.2.
Oh, 7.7.2 into an action item.
Okay.
All right, there has been a motion and a second to amend the approved agenda to move 7.7.2 to an action item. We will add that to 9.6. All right. Action and consent agenda, roll call vote. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Consent agenda items are as follows. Approval of the August 21st, 2025 meeting minutes. Approval of the September personnel update. Cassidy, would you do a roll call, please?
William Beck, Patty Knudsen,
Darcy, yes. Yes.
or no, Colleen Lautenbach,
Yes.
Allison Pitt,
Yes.
Shelby Poole,
Yes.
Ashley Potasic,
Yes.
Carly Sherrill,
Yes.
Joe Valentine.
Yes.
How many more babies do you have coming this year?
Any more babies?
Yeah, I was looking at the personnel, I'm guessing your leaves are babies.
You know?
Oh, I don't know.
No, we'll see. I don't know how much.
All right, so moving on to possible action items. Sorry, nothing. Establish the development committee, establish the superintendent goals and board communication committee, and approve the superintendent goals were originally on there. I think from our former conversation, I'm going to send out an email to board members to see where their interest lies. Do we want to do that before we make these action items then? Is that kind of where we're headed? So we will not take action on 9.1, 9.2, or 9.3. We will table them for the October meeting. But we do need to take action on 9.4. So let's have discussion around 9.4 and 9.5, which was just updating the names of the people who are allowed to make decisions at the bank.
Because I would imagine that was our old director.
It was Kathy and Mandy, and then it was Nancy and Kathy.
So now neither of those people.
Correct.
So what are we doing to get money? How are we doing that?
Well, we haven't had to
Oh.
open any new lines of credit or take make any of those
Okay.
big decisions, open any new accounts, anything like that, so.
Is that a motion you just made?
No, I was just stating, so. I will make a motion to approve 9.4, adding Jonas and myself to engage in credit transactions, open accounts, endorse checks, and orders for the payment of money, or otherwise withdraw or transfer funds on deposit with the Old National Bank on behalf of WLA, and to sign all documents for such transactions on behalf of WLA.
Second.
Right, there's been a motion and a second.
Just for a little context here where this came from, for the new building with the rents we're collecting that goes into the ABC account and everything, we have people that are kind of managing that for us that we wanted to give access to our SharePoint account where they could track things and manage them and help us with it, and nobody had ability to give them access because nobody who was on the accounts was here. So it was really about just giving them access to have be able to view our documents and advise us. And so that led to us needing to change all this just so we could have somebody have access to. And I've had to wire money for postage a couple times. And actually have to go to the bank and do it. And because I don't have access to this 1 point, whatever this is, I had to go to the bank and do it, but once I have access, we'll be able to do it right from the computer in that situation. But I didn't even realize we had this 1 point thing until now, and it's all under one umbrella, our school one and the ABC one apparently. So that's how it came up, was giving access to somebody to view it who's working with us.
Makes sense.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I will abstain. Any other abstentions? Okay, motion carries. I will make a motion to approve 9.5, that we are approving and authorizing Jonas and Nicole Link to be the on-point administrators for WLA as it relates to treasury management platform with Old National Bank.
Second.
Right, there's been a motion and a second. Any conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then 9.6, I would make a motion to approve the proposed revisions of the WLA bylaws that we have discussed this evening.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on, board communication and future items. I will make sure to get that sent out to you guys about committees. Cassidy will send out correspondence to parents for the open seats. I will reach out to Stephanie to ask about the strategic planning and making sure that we are staying in compliance with BOA. And that is all. So we will meet back here Thursday, October 23rd. Is that trunk and treat night or no?
No.
No.
Okay, good.
And then, are we meeting in this building, or are we meeting in another building?
Justin I think Justin said we could do that building, so if we want to do that building,
Next month.
so everyone can kind of see that.
I think that, I feel like he's got the internet stuff pretty well worked out.
Yeah, he said on Tuesday he was confident he could have done it there, but it's too late to change, so.
What's the address there?
8147
80?
Globe Drive.
And it's just a matter of wheeling that stuff across the street.
Yeah, and he's, yeah.
Alright, so we will hold our next regular Board of Directors meeting on Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, at 5:30 PM at 8147 Grove Drive. I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.